Welcome into the Tuesday edition. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Tuesday morning. Hope everybody's off to a fabulous beginning to their day. And what a great day in our country for Joe Rexrode. The day after the beginning of college basketball season. Rexrode, did you stay up last night and watch what ended up being a 40-point win for Gonzaga against Baylor? How we doing?
I did not stay up for the whole game. I did watch most of the first half.
Wow.
So, yeah, which is probably pretty dumb. And, yeah, Gonzaga, man, whoo, they look good. I woke up to that score, and I was like, wow, I did not see that happening. So, yeah, what a day. It's the day after opening day of college basketball. We get the playoff rankings tonight.
Yes.
It's the NFL trading deadline today.
Yes.
There's Maction tonight,
yes,
which is Bowling Green at CMU. I can't think of anything else significant happening today, but what else do we need?
We don't need anything else.
I mean, exactly.
Not a single thing else do we need. My goodness, it's just lining up for a great sports day here today.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, DeAndre Hopkins scoring 2 touchdowns for Kansas City last night and doing the old Remember the Titans dance in the aftermath of it. I mean, there's a lot going on in the world of sports right now.
By the way, do you take that as disrespect? I saw some Titans fans thought he was like taunting them.
I saw some Titans fans think that he was taunting them. And other Titans fans, Joe, think that was him paying homage to the Tennessee Titans. I saw both ends of that spectrum. And I don't know what the answer is. But, yeah, I saw there was like a nice subset of Titans fans that were like, look at that. DeAndre Hopkins paying tribute to the Titans with a Remember the Titans dance in the end zone. And the other half was like, man, look at that DeAndre Hopkins just rubbing the dirt in the face of our franchise. I don't know what the answer is.
I don't think – I mean, if I had to – I mean, I don't think that he was taunting the Titans. Like, I'd be surprised if that was the intent – to taunt the Titans.
Let's be real honest here. I hope that DeAndre Hopkins at his current situation is not spending 1 second thinking about the Tennessee Titans right now. That's just my hope for him.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but it's like last spot and sort of like, all right, I remember the Titans and now I remember again what it is to be on a contender, but there's no dance for that.
What did he end up with? 8 catches for like 86 yards and 2 touchdowns last night. Looked like he's going to fit in pretty nicely there.
Yes. Yeah. He's gonna fit in just fine. And they're still not totally on the same page either on a few things. There was one end of regulation that actually they might not have had to have overtime, but they were a little bit crossed up. But it's gonna work out real well for all parties involved.
Yep, I would imagine that's probably the case. So the NFL trading deadline is today. We're going to get a lot more into that throughout the show. Could more moves be coming for the Tennessee Titans? We'll get into that. Take your thoughts on that on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. We begin with the Nashville Predators, Joe. They lose 3-0 last night to LA, and a third period where they did not register a shot on goal for over 16 minutes into the third period last night. So you're talking about trailing 1-0 heading into the third. LA pretty much immediately makes it 2-0 on just a brutal play by the Predators defensively. And you have more than 16 minutes of ice time go by in the third period before you ever register a shot on goal. Predators have dropped to 4-7-1. Their stretch to open the season, where they played 9 of their first 12 games at home, is now over. And they finished that stretch 3-6 at home. That's not good. And that's obviously not what you're looking for. And last night, you can tell the frustration is completely in there. And look, Ryan O'Reilly, we've talked about this on the show before, Joe. Anytime the Predators lose a game, Ryan O'Reilly basically takes all of the responsibility and everything that happened in the game and puts it squarely on himself. So right. I'm used to that at this point. I will say, though, the frustration from Ryan O'Reilly at a pretty different level than what I've seen after the game last night. Here's what Ryan O'Reilly had to say about frustration creeping into his game and the Predators game as a whole.
You talk about the frustration. Can you feel that, creeping into your guys' game as a whole right now?
Yeah, I know for myself, I'm extremely frustrated. That was probably one of the worst games I think I've ever played from generating and making plays and losing battles. Yeah, like just it's frustration throughout. People feel it through our bench and feel it everywhere. Everyone feels it, and we have to dig deeper to find a way out of it.
That was Ryan O'Reilly after the game. In other parts of his answer, Joe, he called his game pathetic. Said he feels like other teammates probably feel the same way. I mean, it was a pretty visibly upset Ryan O'Reilly after the game last night.
Yeah, like you said, that's his thing, right? He is going to rip himself, which is I respect it. Sometimes I'm like, but were you really that bad? Is it really your fault, Ryan?
Most of the time, the answer is no. He's not that bad.
But I would like to hear you tweeted out the quote from Brunette.
Oh, we've got it.
Yeah, I'd like to hear that.
Well,
if we could.
Okay, we'll do that.
Or
so
set it up.
Yeah, because the frustration part of it, I think, is pretty clear that, O'Reilly and a lot of people, I mean, after they scored that third goal last night, I mean, Yossi basically tomahawked his stick on top of the crossbar and sawed it in two. Like they are mad right now because, I mean, nothing is going their way. And Andrew Burnett had some pretty interesting comments last night on frustration and how that is just sapping the Predators right now. Here's what Andrew Burnett had to say after the game.
Yeah, we've sensed it for a while, and we just can't seem to correct it and get over it. I think I've talked about it enough here over the last couple of weeks about how it's a dangerous emotion, and it's getting the best of us, and it's kind of unfortunately leaked through almost the whole team. And frustration plays tricks on you. Frustration makes you think you're actually working when you're not working. Frustration actually makes you a poor teammate. Frustration is contagious. So those are some pretty bad things, and that's kind of leaked through our group right now.
So that was Andrew Burnett after the game. I mean, it's clearly, and he has talked about frustration and like it can be a pretty dangerous emotion. But last night, I mean, he's talking about, bad teammate and how it's basically, you're acting like you think you're working when you're really not, when you're frustrated. Like it almost felt like Andrew Burnett at the press conference last night was at his wit's end as to what's going on out there.
Yeah. And is there someone specific, someone or a person or persons who's, in particular being talked about there?
I don't know. It's a good question. I mean, look, the bottom line is this is a pretty veteran-laden roster, right? I mean, they have a couple of young guys. But other than that, it's a lot of guys that have either been around here for a long time or have been around the league for a long time and have done a lot of winning. And it's clear, like yesterday's game 12, and they look no more on the same page now than they did game 2, game 3. And that's when I think the number one, the concern level for me, but number two, I think the frustration starts to creep in. Like they couldn't do anything in the offensive zone last night. They couldn't make a 30-foot pass. They were dumping the puck into the corner and somebody was on the wrong side of the ice. Like they just looked totally discombobulated last night in the offensive zone. And, we gave them the pass for a while, Joe, of, well, it's a new system for some of these guys. You're incorporating some really important pieces in the lineup. And that flies for a while. Once you start to get into game 12 and game 15 and game 20, like it's time for that to get fixed here. And right now, nothing seems like it's getting fixed for the Predators.
Yeah, well, like you said, not a lot of young guys, but you have 3 huge additions who have come in. I don't know. At this point, you get this deep into it, and you're not fixing some things. And I wonder if there's just a chemistry problem of some, or if it's just that. Again, we always talk. You talk about like culture, like culture's way better. When a team's winning, right?
Sure.
And then and of course some coaches will say, well, when you test it is when you're losing, but I don't know. I think it's a fair thing to wonder about if there's something beyond the ice that is like a
Yeah.
problem.
No, I think there's most of everything is fair to wonder about right now with this team. Like it's bad. It was bad last night. And I tweeted this out. I'm typically pretty patient when it comes to this stuff. Like I've watched a lot of hockey, and there's a lot of teams. I mean, there's teams every year that just look like dog water to begin the year that end up figuring it out and making the playoffs, and in some cases either winning a championship or make a deep run in the playoffs. And again, like, that still could happen with the Predators. But I think the most concerning thing is like there's no real sign right now that they're digging their way out of it, right? Like it'd be one thing to be losing, but you're building your game. Last night was, I think, probably the worst they've played all year. And that's saying something, by the way. They've had some bad games this year, but last night was bad. And, they kept themselves in it defensively for a while, but offensively, they just were not close to threatening last night. And you bring up, some issues that they're trying to work through. One thing that I don't think was overly difficult to predict, that I think is pretty obvious 12 games in, they don't have a second line center. They don't have one. And they're searching for one. Like they are searching like mad to find somebody that can play with Steven Stamkos. And right now they don't have it. Like Novak has not done it. They put Sissons there. Sissons and the numbers when Sissons and Stamkos together are not good. They tried Parson in the last 2 games. That basically lasted about a period and a half, maybe, into the game last night. And then they started shuffling that up again. They do not have a second line center on their roster, which, Joe, I've been screaming about for the last 3 months. And it's become painfully obvious 12 games into the season that they don't have it.
Is number 2 center for the Preds the same as right tackle for the Titans?
Maybe. Might be.
Yeah, it'll be fine.
Hey, you know what happened?
There's someone who can figure it out. I mean, everything else is good, so it'll be fine.
You know what happened 7 years ago today?
Ooh, the trade for Turris.
That's exactly what happened 7 years ago today. They traded
That's
for Kyle
about time
Turris.
for something like that. But not like that. Not too much like that.
I don't know. Look, it's the Kyle Turris trade in 2017 was basically a carryover with the Avs and Senators from the year before, right? Most of the time, trades don't happen this early because teams don't really know what they are yet. So you don't really see a lot of trades. I think we're getting pretty close here to the point where Trotz has to do something to shake it up. And I know that we're going to get in on the text line today. We got some of it last night. It's all over my Twitter mentions right now about firing Andrew Brunette. I can't say this for sure because I don't know this for sure. My sense, having been around Barry Trotz as long as I've been around Barry Trotz, if you're looking for a GM that's going to be quick on the trigger of firing a coach, I think Barry Trotz is just about the last person you're going to find that does that. Like I don't think Barry Trotz is giving any legitimate consideration whatsoever to firing Andrew Brunette right now. Right now, by the way, I don't think he should be. I think Brunette's a good coach. They got to find a way to figure this out, and it's not been good so far. I get all that. But I think if you're a Predators fan out there that is expecting like some shoe to drop if they lose another couple games this week, like I don't think Barry Trotz is going to be the general manager that has the quick trigger on the coach.
That blows my mind. But I mean,
it's all over my mentions right now. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess that sort of tells you why in this league coaches get fired so much, because it's just like, I don't know how you would go to that right now.
Yeah. I don't know, but it's bad. There's no doubt. 4-7-1, 3-6 to begin the season at home. They got a lot of road games coming up, which, hey, maybe that's what they need right now. Maybe they need to get on the road and get things figured out. We'll have more on the Preds. A lot of your thoughts to get to on the Preds coming up next. 615-737-1025, our phone number. 615-737-1025. This is Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, the game. Tomorrow, your chance to participate in Preds Pick to Click. If you correctly guess a Preds player that scores a goal in the game tomorrow night, you win a pair of tickets to an upcoming Preds home game. Participate with us tomorrow morning at 8:45. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Preds get shut out last night by the LA Kings, 3-0. They are 4-7-1 to begin the season, which is good for dead last in the Central Division and second to last in the entire Western Conference. Only the San Jose Sharks, who are 3-8-2, have fewer points right now than the Nashville Predators. So obviously, it's been a bad start to the season for the Preds, and they go on the road this week. They've got a home game on Saturday, Joe, against Utah. Other than that, they're on the road for, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of their next 9. So a lot of road games coming up for the Nashville Predators. And look, maybe at this point, that is the best thing, is for them to just get out of here for a while. And maybe this is, we hear all the time about road trips and the bonding and the team chemistry and all that. Well, right now they need some of that because they just look like a mess on the ice. And even last night, Joe, their power play had started to click. They had gotten themselves up to a top 10 in the league percentage-wise power play over the last couple of games here because of the way it had been clicking. And last night, the power play was horrendous, and it was bad. I mean, they couldn't even get set up in the zone last night. So a huge step back taken on the power play by the Preds last night, 5-on-5, which is where their issue majorly lies right now. Like, penalty kill for them has been excellent so far this year. The power play has been fine. 5-on-5, they're getting their butts kicked. I don't really know how to explain it. I mean, they're getting absolutely shelled 5-on-5 so far this year. And some of that maybe is just the chemistry thing. Some of that is, the fourth line in particular with Michael McCarron, the numbers were atrocious before they took him out of the lineup. But as a team, they are just not generating anything 5-on-5 in terms of the goal production, and they're getting heavily outscored 5-on-5. I think heading into the game last night, Joe, they were outscored 28-12 5-on-5. It's not very good.
No, it's bad. It's very bad. And look, most of the commentary here is on the coach thing that you mentioned. Jesse here says the system/coaching isn't working. These players didn't get to play. Unfortunately, might be getting time for the only change that can be made. That's the coach. When you spend the money he spent, don't you think it's an option? So I do tend to, we've talked a ton about like the system, right? Yep. And how effective it can be and how I think difficult it can be to play it well. I guess I would say, like, if every year is going to be this thing where it takes a long time to really get it rolling, that you're going to limit yourself with that, right? So
it shouldn't be that way, though. Like, the system is not. It's not Albert Einstein out there coming up with different formulas. Like, it's a complicated system at times, but 90% of these guys have been in this. That's the part that boggles my mind. I still understand it. Like, at this point, Stamkos and Marchessault need to get going, right? It's 12 games in. It's time to get going. Brady Shea, same thing. But, like, I understand it to some level from those guys. What baffles me is everybody else who's been here and has been in the system. And it looks like they don't have a clue out there.
Yeah, so then it's like, okay, so you could talk system and you could put more on Brunette. I mean, it's fair to talk about it for sure. But then to me, it's like you just look at individual players. Like, for example, I mean, I know he's not like a huge, a guy people talk about, but like Michael McCarron last year was a heck of a story, was a heck of a factor, right?
Yeah. And
he's a guy who has just, I mean, and of course they had this first game without him. The fourth line was much better. It just seems like individually you can find a lot of guys who on their own are just not playing well. So why is that? Are we going to put that all in the system?
It's hard for me to put it all in the system. Now, look, I'm not going to sit here and totally absolve Andrew Brunette either, right? Like, his job is to get his team ready to play. And too often they've not been ready to play. So, like, for me to sit here and act like Andrew Brunette's done a good job so far this year, I think it's disingenuous. I think he's a really good coach. I think the idea of firing him would be crazy. That's just me. I think he's a very good coach. I mean, look, he's been a head coach in the league for 2 full years. One of them was a President's Trophy, and the other one he was a Jack Adams finalist. So I don't think that he's all of a sudden forgotten how to coach. But like one thing that's just mystifying to me, and they've been talking about this basically since like the second game of the year, is they're not getting chances on the inside. They're not getting to the interior. They're not getting to some of those grade A areas where, not that they were elite in that category last year, but they were good. Like they were good at creating those high danger chances. And for whatever reason, they can't get there. I don't know. And last night was probably the worst example. I don't know that Darcy Kemper got breathed on by a Nashville Predator last night. And as talented as this team is, and there's no doubt that they're way more talented than they were a year ago, if you can't get to the middle of the ice, you're just not going to score enough in this league. I don't care how talented you are. And right now, for the life of me don't understand. Like I asked Luke Shen about it last night. Like you guys have been talking about the interior, and you can't get there. Like why has that been such a problem? And he talked about mentality. He talked about a willingness to get in there. But like at some point, you got to stop talking about it and you got to go do it. And they just haven't done it yet.
Yeah, speaking of Shen, at least there was a highlight. Shen,
God, that was a heck of a fight.
Bludgeoning Tanner Jeannot. Make up for Shen's last fight.
That was two big boys going after it last night. Luke Shen got the better of that one.
Well, speaking of getting to the middle, you and Nick were at the recent practice, right? Where Brunette is, I mean, it's clearly like he's fed up with it, and he's bringing out the old school coaching.
They had a practice on
it's still
Friday
not happening.
where basically he stopped practice, and I can't really effectively describe what he said while still remaining FCC compliant. But let's just say the point got across. And basically Friday, like they ended practice. Like he basically kicked them off the ice, Joe. He was like, get out. And they basically got kicked off the ice, which by the way, Saturday they played really well. Like I thought they played well Saturday. And I was like, well, maybe that was the kick in the pants that they needed. And then you come out there on Monday and played arguably your worst game of the year.
Just do it every day, man. All you have to do is just scream, go Newt Rockney's speech every day, screaming him every day.
Yeah, that'll never get old.
And that'll do it. Ethan from Lawrenceburg says, Bruno won a President's Trophy, then didn't keep his job. That's interesting. Yeah, right. But he also, he took over an interim situation, right, when Quenneville gets fired and the Cal Beach stuff. And, they went and got a guy who had a much bigger track record. Yeah, I mean, like, I think you're looking for something that isn't there on that one, Ethan.
Well, Paul Murray's a great coach. Like yes. I've talked about him a lot. He's a great coach. I wouldn't take that as necessarily some indictment on Andrew Burnett. Look, I think Andrew Burnett's a really good coach. One thing that's become clear, right? Like they started 5-10 last year, and right now they're 4-7-1. I don't know why they start the season so poorly, but right now the book on Andrew Burnett with the Predators is he's got to figure out a way to get them to start faster. And look, it's not the end of the world right now. I know it feels that way. Right now they're 5 points back of Utah. They're 4 points back of the Blues. They're 6 points back of the Stars. Like they're not that far away from some of these teams that are right there. But I mean, Winnipeg's got 22 points. They're 13 points up on the Preds right now. Old John Hines is 9 points up on the Preds right now in Minnesota. Like these are not easy points to make up throughout the year. Now you got a lot of division games. And if you go dominate Minnesota throughout the year in the division, then that's going to help, obviously. But what I'm saying is this is too good of a team on paper to be having to fight and scratch and claw your way into playoffs, which what they've done now, Joe, that's what they're going to have to do the rest of the year.
Yeah, they need a heater soon, I mean, I guess they had a little, 3 in a row is nice, but like they need a legit heater to kind of balance themselves out. Thanksgiving. Yep. Thanksgiving is when that's kind of a little benchmark.
It is. Now, granted, they were not in the playoff spot last year at Thanksgiving, and they made it.
Yeah. But I mean, even to be like a little bit more in the human race by then would be good.
That would be nice. 615-737-1025, our phone number. We will get back into the Preds a little bit later in the show. Take your thoughts throughout the show on that. The NFL trading deadline is today. Could more moves be coming for the Tennessee Titans? And if not, should Titans fans be upset? We'll get into that. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Tuesday morning. The NFL trade deadline today at 3 o'clock Central Time. Titans have already made some moves. DeAndre Hopkins looking pretty good for the Kansas City Chiefs last night. Ernest Jones traded away as well. Could more moves be coming? And if they don't, should Titans fans be upset once 3 o'clock rolls around today? Joe, how do you view this with the Titans? They've already made a couple of moves. We all know that they don't have, I think, a ton of tradable assets at the moment. Well, they do have some, so we'll see what that looks like. But how do you view today, the NFL trading deadline, and what the expectation should be from Titans fans today?
Yeah, I think, I think it would be good for the Titans to get more draft capital if possible. I mean, look, we talked yesterday so much about this whole thing of like they're not going to tank, and apparently all through the day people are mad that like Brian Callahan was emotional about a win he badly needed. I don't get that. I don't get it. But people, God forbid someone acts like a human being and is is genuine with how they feel in a moment in a high stakes, high emotion type situation. But even with the fact that these guys in the building are going to try to win all they can, the front office does have to feel differently, right? I mean, the front office, to me, has to just obviously, especially that you take Cushenberry out, you take Diggs out. I mean, this team is shredded. So the guys in the locker room on a weekly basis, they're going to try their darndest to win. They should, and they will. And they'll probably win a game we don't expect. They're not going to win many games. They're not going. There's very few wins coming the rest of the way. The front office needs to see what they can do today. So it's always one of those things with a trade or not a trade. I mean, we don't get to sit here and get the transcript of the calls. So I mean, if there's no great deals being offered, then okay, then don't make a deal. But to me, like an Arden Key, I do agree with what Corey said. Like if you're getting just peanuts, then no, forget that. But if to me, if you could get a fifth for Arden Key, I would do that. I would 100% do a fourth. I think that's probably not going to happen, but I would take a fifth.
I'm really interested to see if there's a market for him, because I would say the majority of his time here has been disappointing. Like, he has been a starting player, but the production for large portions of last year and most of this year before the last couple of weeks has been absent. Like, it just hadn't been there. Now, he's played great the last 2-3 weeks here for the Titans. So how does that affect the market? I would love to see. Like, could you actually get a 5th round pick for Arden Key based on the totality of what he's done here? I don't know. Like, if a team is sold that he's going to be the player he's been the last couple of weeks, I think you probably can. But I'm really interested to see if there's a market for him.
Yeah, that's where again, and if it's seriously just like, we'll throw you a 6th, throw you a 7th, and like Corey said, you have to think about moving forward. You have to have some football players, and he's not the worst depth guy to have, right? You don't want him to be a starter moving forward. Now, then you get into the more significant possibilities, better players with legitimate contracts, which of course can be a deterrent to other teams. But again, I'll go back. So here's a little development. I have no idea what the heck it means, but the Lions beat writers are retweeting Zadarius Smith with an SMH. Okay. SMH, which for people out there who don't know, that means shaking my head.
It does.
So why is Zadarius Smith tweeting shaking my head? Now, yesterday, a lot of people, including I think Florio, were saying it's imminent that the Lions are trading for Zadarius Smith. The Lions have to make a move. Yeah, they have a Super Bowl possible team, but their pass rush will keep them from the Super Bowl if it is what it is now. So shaking my head, is that because he's mad he's traded to the Lions, or that the deal fell through? If it's that the deal fell through, well, now you're starting to get a little desperate. Dan Campbell yesterday is sitting there talking well, if it happens, it happens, and if not, guys step up, blah blah blah. Like coaches always say, next man up. He knows. They all know they don't have any pass rush. Aiden Hutchinson was, like defensive player of the year performance before he broke his leg. So that's always the scenario that I've talked about with Landry, which is you get close to the deadline, you're striking out everywhere else, and it's time to pony up. You got to dig deeper than you want to if you're the buyer, and you have to give more than you were going to give. And that's so to me. If I'm Rand Carthon, he and Brad Holmes have a history together.
Yep.
I'm staying on that phone and saying, hey, look, you could also make the case, why would you trade a guy like Landry? He's a foundational guy. You have to have some good players. You take him out, and then you totally have to start over on the edge. Like you have to completely start over.
Yep.
And I agree. That's why I'm only taking a primo pick, and also I'm getting freaking Hendon Hooker. I'm getting freaking Hendon Hooker out of this deal.
Hey,
I'm telling you, and I know people are gonna laugh like, oh yeah, the ball's fast. No, man. Look, you bring him in, you send them Mason Rudolph. Mason Rudolph can be the reliable 2 to Jared Goff if he gets hurt or whatever, if he misses a game or two. And then you have at least a competition, and then you can do something else too at quarterback, but at least then you would have a competition. I still think Hendon Hooker is going to be a good quarterback in the NFL. Laugh at me if you will. I believe it.
Let's go to our 1025 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in Daryl. Daryl, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Morning.
I understand that we want the Titans to build up draft capital, but I do not understand the rationale of trading a guy like Arden Key for a 4th or a 5th or a 6th round draft choice to get back Jack Gibbons or a player of that quality. I mean, that's what you get in these lower rounds. Typically, yeah, there may be a diamond in the rough, but the chances of that are minuscule. So they do need draft capital, but to trade for draft choices that are in the 4th to 7th rounds, I don't understand that. Unless you're trading a backbencher or a guy that doesn't play. Yeah, if you get a 4th or a 5th or a 6th out of him, sure, go ahead. But I don't understand that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, so I to me, I cut it off at the 5th. I think there's a big difference between like a 4th or a 5th or a 6th. Man, I'll take a 4th for sure. I mean, look,
they're not getting a 4th round pick for Arden Key. Like I'd be shocked.
I would be too. I'd take a 5th. Would you rather have Jarvis Brownlee or Arden Key? I mean, I understand what you're saying. There's a lot of players, in the lower rounds that of course don't pan out.
Sure.
But it's not like it's just absolutely, Hail Mary to get a good player in the 4th or 5th round. It's not. And if you're good at drafting, again, I like Brownlee this year. Is it one of the best things about this front office so far? If you get another player like that, I would take that.
So should the Titans make more moves today at the NFL trading deadline, which is today at 3 p.m. Central Time? And if they don't, how upset should Titans fans be? We'll get into more of that coming up next. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Welcome back in. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. The NFL trade deadline is today at 3 o'clock Central Time, and we'll see what the Titans have left up their sleeve here, if anything at all. Taking your thoughts on that, 615-737-1025. Let's go back to our 102.5 The Game phone line and welcome in Scott. Scott, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
What's going on, fellas? Thanks for taking my call. Wanted to help out the gentleman that just called. The draft capital doesn't mean like we're going to pick a player in the fifth, sixth round. You can use that pick and move up in the fourth round if you wanted to package something. So it's not just getting a player of that caliber. It maybe can be used to move up a few spots in the draft and get a guy that you want. So I think getting a fifth round pick for Arden Key instead of losing him and not getting anything would be great. I don't know about any other guys that got 1 year left, but that's where we are now. And I agree. I can't remember who said it, but we're not going to win too many more games this year. So let's honestly back up the truck and get some draft capital and think about next year, man. Thanks for taking my call.
Yep, thanks for the call, Scott. Appreciate it. Good point by Scott there. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be, oh, well, we got a fifth round pick, so we're using it now. I mean, you can, when you stockpile picks, package those together and move up if there's somebody you really like in the draft at that point. Now, look, if you're a Titans fan out there, Joe, like, I understand too, if you're talking about totally revamping this team, the idea of getting a fifth round pick or a sixth round pick or whatever it would be for Arden Key. And again, I'm still not convinced that there's going to be a huge market for him, but we'll see. Like, I understand why that's not overly exciting. Like, you want the first round picks and the second round picks and all that stuff. I just don't know that there's anybody on the Titans roster right now that they're going to be willing to trade that can actually bring you that in return.
Right. Yeah. It's not a ton, but yeah, it's a good point there. And I think, like, if you have a bunch of 6th and 7ths, I mean, I don't know, does that help you a ton? I mean, the more you have, the more possibilities you have. Okay, we'll throw you this or this, but like a fifth, I just think a fifth is valued obviously more, and there's a lot more instances of fifth round players, who work out. Another thing, we've talked about this before, but with the draft, it is. I mean, look, Ohio State has guys on their roster this year who, would have gone into the draft and been drafted for sure. Ohio State kept them. Ohio State's paying $20 million this year for this team, which is on record the most by far in college football. And there are a lot of guys who are going to, rather than be low round picks in the NFL, if they are prominent players for a prominent college program with boosters who want to pay them to stay and play another year, they're going to do that. So the end of the draft is going to be, I think consistently less valuable than it was. For one thing, you just add all those players together and you just have less talent, but also, again, it's usually more guys like that who are mid to late round projections get those grades back and say, okay, well, I'm making good money here. I'll stay at, Nebraska. Right. So that's another thing to keep in mind. I just think 6th and 7ths now are as devalued as they've ever been.
So let me ask you this. What would it take today if you're Carthon, Brinker, Callahan, the decision makers for the Titans? What would it take for you to give serious consideration to trading Jeffrey Simmons or a Harold Landry today?
Well, it's got to be. I mean, Simmons.
Do you think they would actually consider trading Simmons?
Yeah, I mean, if someone called him and blew him away, I don't see how I don't see how you wouldn't. I mean, he played well Sunday for sure. He is not, like, if you got great player return for someone who to me isn't a great player right now, is a very good player, then I think you have to consider it, right? It's like, what are you then? What are you losing? You have to project him. Like, what is he next year and the year after? You're paying him a ton. You know,
Yep.
is he playing up to that contract after in the next couple of years?
Well, by the way, the
I mean,
injuries are starting to pile up on him too. Like it's
yeah, yeah.
it's hard for him to stay healthy right now.
Right, and that's what happens. And I think in 2022 his career took a turn with the credit to him for the guts he showed. But if you're shooting yourself up every week to be able to get out there, you might have lingering effects there. But it's got to be. I'm not even thinking about it. To me, it's got to be a second either way. You got to start there, and that may be too rich, but I'm just not doing that if I'm the Titans for like a third. And then again, I do think there aren't many situations like the Hendon Hooker situation. I just love that possibility. People, I mean, he gets lumped in with like these quarterbacks in that class who haven't worked out. It's like the dude had an ACL and has had no opportunity. He's got like the most efficient quarterback ever right now starting in front of him, who's an MVP candidate.
He went 2 or 3 against the Titans, didn't he?
Oh, Hooker did?
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
That completion
Yeah,
percentage is high, baby.
To me, anything that might help you have some other answer in your quarterback situation. I don't know if there's another situation like that out there. Is there another like young guy on a bench that you could be intrigued by? No one immediately comes to mind, but he absolutely comes to mind. So if that was part of it, along with I guess I would even like a second in him, and you send back Landry and Rudolph. I know we're playing fantasy trade deadline right now, but
that's what today is, though. Like it's
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, today's the day. Like if the deal's going to happen, it's going to happen. Look, I mean, I would be pretty surprised if Harold Landry and Jeffrey Simmons are not members of the Tennessee Titans this time tomorrow. So I don't expect that to happen today. Like there's really nobody that I wouldn't give serious consideration to if somebody called. Like probably with the exception of Latham and some of these young guys, but like if somebody calls and seriously is offering a considerable package for Jeffrey Simmons, I think you'd be crazy not to think about it if you're the Titans. Same thing with Harold Landry. Now the problem then becomes like, what's the balance if you're the Titans of getting draft capital and the assets that those players would command, but also like not having to just totally rebuild every position on your football team. Like that's the balance that you have to strike there.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that's the thing we're talking Key, you're talking Landry. Again, I mean, I think no matter what happens, and both of them are here tomorrow, that's a prominent,
no doubt,
position to address. What if you trade one of them? Like that, then you really have to deal with that while also, as we know, dealing with many other issues that this roster has still.
No doubt. 615-737-1025, our phone number. We'll take more of your thoughts on the NFL trading deadline and the Tennessee Titans. We'll get back into that a little bit later in the show as well. The college football playoff rankings coming out tonight. What do we expect that to look like? And what would our rankings be? We'll get into that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Hour number 2, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Tuesday morning. The college football playoff rankings coming out tonight. The first time, Joe, that we'll see the 12-team rankings. Josh Heupel was asked about this yesterday at his press conference, and you might as well have asked him, what his favorite color paint from Home Depot is. Like, he didn't have a whole lot of interest in discussing it, and basically said, you remember what the first playoff rankings looked like last year? I don't either. That's what it means. So that was good stuff from Heupel yesterday. But I am a little bit interested tonight, Joe, knowing that there's a lot of football left to be played, to see what the rankings look like, where Tennessee lands in those rankings, and the 12 teams as a whole. Your thoughts on the inaugural 12-team playoff ranking that we will see tonight at 6 o'clock on ESPN?
Well, I'm very excited for it. I think it's obviously it's the first 12 team, so that's that alone is it's very different. And I think a lot of people are going to learn. If you follow college football closely, then you get that the top 4 seeds have to be conference champions, and
Yep.
And things like that. And well. Game day Saturday, Robby, there was these poor Penn State kids who actually thought that James Franklin might win a big game and that they might beat Ohio State. They're interviewing he's like the head of the student section, and he's like, yeah, and we're gonna win, and we're gonna win the Big Ten. We're gonna host a playoff game, and it was means like, hold on, time out, buddy. If you win the Big Ten, you actually won't host a playoff game.
Right.
You get to go to the freaking Orange Bowl or something.
If you want to host,
for a
you should lose.
quarterfinal.
Yeah,
that's right. 5 through 8 hosts. 1 through 4 don't get home playoff games. So that's one. There's some things about this whole setup that I think the general kind of more casual public is probably going to start figuring out and then realize all over again, wow, that's freaking dumb.
Yeah.
But there's just a lot of fascinating things, of course, about these first rankings. One of my big things, we all had to do rankings. I'm trying to find these. I know that as a staff we had to do these things, so I came up with a 12 team at the Athletic. But one team that I can tell you that one team I had in that a lot of people won't, but I had in SMU.
Ooh. I like it.
I mean, look, they
look
lost
pretty darn good.
Well, they blew out Pitt, previously undefeated. They handled Louisville, who, by the way, just went and smoked Clemson.
Yeah.
Glad that you and I were, totally fooled by Dabo again. Never again. And one loss to undefeated BYU by 3 points. Right now SMU's in my field. I think the most interesting team today is Indiana. Because Indiana, and first of all, it's just what's on the helmet, right? Like if Indiana's path had been, if it was Alabama, if it was Georgia or whatever, and it's the same level of games you'd won and everything, but you'd been that dominant with the Alabama on the helmet, I mean, I think they'd be very high. And I'm very interesting to see how, because look, they don't have great wins. I mean, what's their best win? They blew out Nebraska, which, I mean, is just a bizarre team that just lost to UCLA after they handled Washington with their backup quarterback. Washington's a pretty good team. They went to Michigan State this last week and won by 37 points. It's not a terrible team, but I mean, they haven't beaten anybody great. They have dominated, and game control is supposed to be a big thing here, right?
Yep.
Game control, like consistent dominance of your opponent. So, I put Indiana 6 in my rankings. Right after Ohio State. Ohio State gets the edge, even though they lost at Oregon because they just won at Penn State. But I don't know. I mean, I could see them being quite a bit lower than that. They're certainly going to be in the 12 as an undefeated team. But, where are they? And, of course, the SEC is just going to be absolutely fascinating to see where all those teams, including Tennessee, are put. I mean, Tennessee, I'm still trying to find my bracket, but I think I had Tennessee in an 8-9 game with Texas right now.
Yep.
So that's where I had them.
I've got my 12 teams. You ready for them?
Yeah, man.
There's my 12-team playoff as we sit here today. Oregon at number 1, which I think is what you will see tonight. I've got Georgia at 2, undefeated Miami at 3, BYU at 4. So there's your conference champs right there, right? So your top 4 seeds right there. I've got Ohio State at 5. I've got Penn State at 6, Texas at 7, Tennessee at 8, Notre Dame at 9, Indiana at 10, Boise State at 11, and Alabama at 12. That's where I'm at currently.
Okay. Yeah, that's an interesting one. That's the thing, and that's a good point. The group of 5 is not necessarily the group of 5 team is not necessarily, has to be not necessarily the 12.
No.
And here's another thing with that, let's say the Big 12 really messes around here. Someone beats BYU and they just had a terrible week. Iowa State loses, Kansas State loses again. Like that league is looking at probably one team.
Yep.
Well, if BYU loses a game, it's possible that Boise State, if they went out, it's possible they could be a top 4 seed.
It is.
Because you don't have to have the Power 4. The Power 4 don't have to be the 4 teams that get the top 4 seeds. It's just the highest ranked automatic champion, right? Champions. Yep. So because they have 5 of those, that guarantees there's a group of 5 team in there. It's guaranteed that there's 5 champions that are in this. So Boise State could be way up. So I'm close with you. So basically, yes, Oregon, Georgia, Miami, BYU, Ohio State. Then I go Indiana 6, Notre Dame 7. Then I have Texas 8, the actual UT, Tennessee 9, Penn State 10. Again, I have SMU at 11.
Okay.
Boise State at 12. I have no Alabama. So I mean that's another thing tonight, right? Is just the meltdown that we all could enjoy if Alabama is not in the 12.
The reason I've got them
early,
in is the win against Georgia. That's why I've got them in right now.
Sure.
And by the way, they're in an elimination game coming up on Saturday. Like the loser of Alabama and LSU, I don't think is getting it.
I 100% agree. It is, I think, the definition of an elimination game here in November. So
and I said a couple weeks ago, Joe, like if you're a Tennessee fan, are you rooting for Alabama to win, for that win to look as good as possible if you're Tennessee? There's also, I mean, people have thrown this out there, like what if both Tennessee and Alabama ended up at 10-2? Like conventional wisdom would tell you, well, Tennessee beat them head to head, so they'll get in. And that's not always necessarily the case. Like, 2022 is a good example. Now that was a 14 playoff and not a 12, and neither one of them got in. But Alabama finished ahead of Tennessee in the ranking, even though they were both 10-2, and Tennessee beat them head to head. Now, granted, Tennessee also lost Hendon Hooker at their quarterback, so that probably factors in too. I'm just saying it's not always as simple as, well, so-and-so beat them head to head, so they're automatically in.
Not at all. Oh, not at all. Head to head often it doesn't end up being the deciding factor. And I know people get mad when it is, and if their team is the one who won the head-to-head matchup. But no, I mean, if Alabama goes in there and smokes LSU, and by the way, some people have LSU. I know some people in the Athletic and their projections have LSU in their top 12 right now.
Yep.
I mean, they're right there. LSU, my problem with LSU is the loss to USC just looks terrible.
Yeah.
The loss to USC, I mean, the loss to Texas A&M, that's not fatal, but like what is LSU's best win? I guess it would be Ole Miss, right?
Yes.
And winning at South Carolina was good, but also that's the thing. This is where you also get into, and this is what happens. These guys, these folks, men and women in this committee sit there and they talk about every single thing. So if you watched LSU's win at South Carolina, which right now counts pretty well for them, you also know that Lenora Sellers got hurt. And frankly, if you really watched the game, my God, did South Carolina get screwed in that game? That's things like that get nitpicked, down to the absolute granular level, right? So that's something to keep in mind. But yeah, I mean, LSU, A&M was in great shape. There's just a ton of SEC teams that are right around the fringe. Ole Miss is right there still.
Yep.
I mean, they're an elimination game. Really, honestly, that's kind of an elimination game, isn't it? Ole Miss, Georgia. I mean, Georgia still would be
They'd be
Georgia's still
alive.
alive.
Yeah.
They'd be alive. Certainly, it's an elimination game for Ole Miss. It's at home, Georgia at Ole Miss. But I mean, if Georgia loses that game, now it gets dicey for them, and Tennessee could end them a week later.
If you're a Tennessee fan, would you sign up for my Tennessee Notre Dame hosting at Neyland Stadium matchup right now? I would.
Oh man. No, that's a beautiful thing. So what are your matchups? Your 5-8 matchups would be 5 through 12 would be what?
That's Ohio State, and that would be Alabama. Ohio State, Alabama in the 5-12.
Okay. Yep.
I think Penn State. I've lost my sheet. I think it was Penn State, Indiana, the matchup. Tennessee, Notre Dame, and then it was Texas and Boise State. I think. I'll try to pull my sheet back up.
Yeah, Notre Dame at Tennessee would be, yeah. So I would have Boise State, Ohio State, which, I mean, that may not be great. SMU at Indiana, which is hilarious. I mean, what playoff battle, SMU at Indiana and Bloomington. I got Penn State at Notre Dame, which would be sweet. And then, Tennessee, Texas would be. And the cool thing is with some of these, just the way it works out, like we don't have rematches. These conferences are 97 teams big, so Tennessee and Texas didn't play. Indiana, Penn State didn't play. So it's going to be hard at times. If you're going to get 4 SEC and 4 Big Ten teams, it's going to be hard to avoid them playing each other early, but hopefully you won't have rematches because, hey, these conferences are so bloated.
615-737-1025, our phone number. The first college football playoff rankings coming out tonight. Where do you expect Tennessee to be? Is Alabama going to get left out? We'll take your thoughts on all that. 615-737-1025. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, The Game. Welcome back in. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. 615-737-1025. The college football playoff rankings coming out tonight. We will get back into the playoff discussion here in just a little bit. Joe, we do have some breaking news in the National Football League as it relates to the NFL trading deadline. You brought up Zadarius Smith and the pursuit of the Detroit Lions. Well, they've made the deal. Adam Schefter putting it out there. Zadarius Smith on his way to the Detroit Lions from the Cleveland Browns. And here is the comp update from Adam Schefter. To Detroit, Zadarius Smith and a 2026 7th-round pick. To Cleveland, a 2025 5th-round pick and a 2026 6th-round pick. What do you make of that?
Well, first of all, so I guess the SMH is he's not happy with being a Lion, right? Was that what I have to
maybe so.
Is that when I have to judge from that? Yeah, it's okay. So 7th, the 5th, and the 6th. Yeah, I mean, for the Lions' perspective, that's pretty good, man. I mean, the Brownies, man. Brownies make some sweet deals, don't they? Boy, I tell you what, Cleveland Browns fans must be just so excited about the way that team is coming together. I tell you. Yeah. So, well, I guess I still would ask. That's the thing. Now the Lions, they're not desperate, right? So my little scenario here with the Titans is probably dead. Sad. Pour one out for my awesome scenario. But is that enough? Is Zadarius Smith enough? How good is Zadarius Smith anymore?
He's got 5 sacks in 9 games. He's still a good player. Like, is he an elite pass rusher still? No. I mean, he's 32. He had 13.5 sacks 2019, 12.5 in 2020, and he had 10 with Minnesota in 2022. Since then, he had 5.5 with Cleveland last year. He's got 5 in 9 games so far this year. So he helps. Like, he's a good player. He's not, I don't know if he's a game wrecker or anything like that anymore. But I'll tell you this, like, if that's where the bar right now is set for the return that they got, Arden Key is not bringing you back much if you're the Tennessee Titans.
That's true. Yeah. If a 5th and a 6th going out, 7th coming back is Big Z, then yeah, Arden Key is like a 6, maybe
7th.
So
yeah.
So I wouldn't even bother. I wouldn't bother. I wouldn't bother with it. I mean, I guess a 6, maybe I don't know. Like, again, the idea, like the caller said, you stockpile picks and maybe you can package some picks and stuff like that. I mean, Arden Key is not terrible to have as a depth guy. And I guess some of it's like, for example, with him, it's like, okay, so what do they think about Jalen Harrell? Is Jalen Harrell at some point going to be at least a rotational guy that they think they can count on? We know that in camp, everybody loved him. It's questions like that come into the equation. Yeah. Big Z. Anybody, the one game I remember, 2018, anybody remember the Ravens coming in here?
Oh, yes.
I think they won like 21-0 or something like that. But like Marcus Mariota could not breathe in that game. Like, just absolutely one of the most dominant defensive performances I've seen in the NFL. Wink Martindale coming in with that Ravens defense, and Big Z was just an absolute nightmare. But again, that's 6 years ago. Yeah, he's good. Like, he played for your squad, so he's a solid player. He's a good player. He makes some plays.
Yeah, I mean, the NFC North tour continues. By the way, you bring up that game. It was 21-0. Ravens Titans, the most dominant 21-0 game I think I've ever seen. And Zadarius Smith had 3 sacks in that game. 3 sacks by himself.
I knew. Okay, there you go. I knew, like, I was like, man, that guy is unbelievable. Just completely unblockable. Who the heck was trying to block him that day?
I don't know.
The thing is, it's like, was Lawan healthy that day? Like, what the heck? That's what's weird is, like, Lawan and Conklin were their tackles back then, which for the most part was great. But of course, Conklin, that was the year that Conklin was coming off the ACL.
Yeah.
So that's where that was a tough year for him from that perspective. But yeah, Big Z, man. So there's another pass rusher off the market. And of course, the Cardinals were a team that's been reported, and it makes sense. Monty Ossenfort was here, but that they were poking around here, but they got themselves a pass rusher too. So I'm at this point, I'm probably going to guess that, that the Titans are probably just going to have the same roster right now. They'll have the same roster tomorrow.
That would be my guess. I mean, you're running out of teams and options here to trade. Now we'll see. I will say this has become a lot more entertaining around the NFL trading deadline than it used to be. I mean, it used to be something on the calendar that you just didn't even know existed because there were so few trades. We've seen a few more this year. Again, if you missed it, Zadarius Smith being traded from the Browns to the Detroit Lions. Lions get back Zadarius Smith and a 2026 7th-round pick. The Browns, a 2025 5th-rounder and a 2026 6th-rounder as well. So not a steep price to pay if you're the Detroit Lions and you got a guy with already 5 sacks in 9 games coming in to help that defense. And by the way, I'm with you. They needed to make a move. Like at some point, it was probably going to catch up to them. The defense has played pretty well without Aiden Hutchinson to this point, and now you add another pass rusher there. I said it yesterday. I stand by it, recognizing that I'm probably an idiot for saying this while the Chiefs are undefeated and have won 2 straight Super Bowls. I think the Lions are the best team in the league.
Yeah, they might be. They are right there. I honestly, I watched that whole game last night. Hopkins makes a difference.
Oh yeah.
But man, I think Baltimore's better. I think Baltimore's better than Kansas City. I do. We'll see. And I'm not sure on Buffalo. I just think, Kansas City, they obviously they have the best player and he just always makes plays. And maybe the Hopkins thing is going to grow and it's just going to start to really look scary again, but they are so beatable,
Glad he's not hurt, by the way, because I thought for a minute he was going to be last night.
No, my initial terrible internet doctor diagnosis was, oh my God, it's an Achilles. It's one of those, non-contact, and all of a sudden you're hopping around. You can't put any weight on it. Oh, but thank goodness. And then you're like, oh no, he just blew his knee. And then you're like, oh, he's coming right back.
No, he's fine. Yeah. Going out there making some more plays.
Quarterback.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah. But I just look, no one will be shocked if they win a 3rd straight, but I don't think they're going to. I really don't. I'm going to hot take it right now. They're not going to win a 3rd straight. They're not going to get to the Super Bowl this year.
Clip that up. Clip it up.
Clip it up.
We'll see how it goes, baby. We'll see how it goes. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We'll have more of your thoughts on the NFL trade deadline, a couple of your thoughts on the college football playoff to get to as well. We'll do all that. The Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode coming up at 7:45. All that ahead, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. This week's Nashville's best deal is from Black Rabbit. Black Rabbit, a great spot to enjoy some Nashville vibes with craft cocktails, delicious food, and live music. Just steps from iconic venues. It's perfect for a night out. Snagging a $50 gift card for only $25, a fantastic way to experience it. So get yours now at theGameNashville.com/deals while supplies last. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. The NFL trading deadline is today. Zadarius Smith being traded from the Cleveland Browns to the Detroit Lions. So one would think you can take the Lions off the list in terms of potential trade partners for the Tennessee Titans. Although, Joe, who knows? At that price, maybe they just want to load up. Just get as many edge rushers as possible.
Yeah, I mean, Arden Key looked pretty good in Detroit.
He did.
I thought I saw they did like a jersey swap after the game, and he was like, "Oh, does this mean I'm on the Lions now?"
Yeah.
But it didn't work out for him that well. Yeah, I suppose they could try to add another sort of comp. They're still not. I would not say the Lions have a good enough pass rush right now just by adding Zadarius Smith. It goes from 0 to Zadarius Smith.
Yeah.
So I suppose anything is possible. But again, yeah, is there anybody else out there who, would be, because to me, it's like it's Landry and Simmons. Like I'm not considering, if I'm the Titans, any of my young players on their rookie deals who I think are good. Right. So like, and I know some people will laugh at like Skronsky, but I'm not, Skronsky, Latham, obviously the rookies this year. There aren't a lot. That's the thing. The depressing thing when you go through the Titans roster is there aren't a lot of guys who fit that bill. You want a lot of guys like that. You want a lot of young guys on rookie deals who are good and are obviously untouchable at trading deadline time. There aren't a ton.
Traylon Burks getting moved today.
Sweat would be one of them. I mean,
12th round pick.
I think expand the draft by 10 rounds so that you can trade them. Yeah. It's probably going to be quiet on the Titans front. So, and again, it's like it used to be, okay, who cares? That's what the NFL's trading deadline is. But now that it's become all exciting, you kind of feel left out if you're not part of it in the NFL anymore.
I'm still holding out some hope. We'll see if the Titans make a move by the time the 3:00 deadline rolls around. Top tier on the YouTube chat says Baltimore never beats Kansas City. Directed at you, Rexrode. Upset that you think Baltimore's better than Kansas City.
I did. I just want you to keep in mind that I did say it's a hot take. I mean, I like right now, I think most people would pick the Chiefs to win that matchup. Most people would pick the Chiefs to get the Super Bowl. I think Baltimore's got something special, man. I do.
You picked Baltimore in the preseason to go to the Super Bowl.
I did, and they made me waver a little bit. And I know that you don't want to. I'm not just overreacting to like them beating Denver 41-10, although I love the pregame conversation of like Sean Payton, like, we're going to be the more physical team. Like, no, you're going to get your butt absolutely handed to you. I think they've got everything with all the receivers they have and what Derrick Henry's doing for them and their I really like them, but we'll see. I watch Kansas City. I've watched a ton of Kansas City. Probably most of us have, because like they're usually featured in some way. And man, they have a very good defense. And Patrick Mahomes is the best player. And they are limited. They really are. And they're very beatable, but they just keep winning these close games. Kudos to them. But this is not some, oh my God, who's going to beat that team situation.
By the way, Derrick Henry, another 100-yard, 2-touchdown game for the Baltimore Ravens on Sunday. So just add another one to the list, baby. He's just rolling right along up there in Baltimore.
He's past 1,000, leading the league by a large margin. I don't think he's going to get 2, but he's probably going to end up like 1,800 yards this year. Just insane.
By the way, we won't talk about my preseason Super Bowl pick of the Cincinnati Bengals to win, who currently sit at 4-5 and not in the playoffs.
You had Bengals who?
Who did I have in the NFC?
Niners?
I think it was Lions. I feel good about that.
Ooh, wow. Yeah. I had Ravens, Niners, I think. I
believe so.
Had Niners. Yeah. I'm not, they're not done yet. The injuries and things like that.
McCaffrey's coming back?
I'm not counting them. Yeah, McCaffrey's about to come back. Obviously, Ayuk, that's a killer. but I still think they have enough.
Chase on the text line, going back to the college football playoff rankings, says Tennessee should be around 8 to 10 right now, but I think Tennessee wins out. Carson Beck is just another Tannehill. That'll get Rexrode going. 3 picks in back-to-back games.
Okay.
Tennessee's defense is going to terrorize him. Secondly, since Alabama, the second half, Nico has a different level of confidence. Offense starting to gain some momentum and figure some things out. Still not clicking on all cylinders, but they're getting there. This is from Chase on the text line, saying anywhere from 8 to 10, probably the right ranking for Tennessee tonight.
Carson Beck's just another top 10 pick who's going to go to the Pro Bowl and have several 4,000-yard
Here we
seasons. Yeah, I know. I'm going to end up being the biggest Tannehill homer ever. Carson Beck really is. Yeah, so our guys Brugler and Baumgartner, friends of the show, did a little thing this week, kind of a roundtable, and they're talking like Carson Beck's a 3rd rounder. Which is, I mean, remember, like
That's a
going
far cry from where it started.
Yeah, but also that like this quarterback class is like it's not. I think Baumgartner said it's not 2022, but it's on the dance floor with that. So that's something just to keep in mind.
Good for the Titans.
Sorry. Yeah, exactly. I don't want to interject like the heavy draft talk, but just as something to keep in mind there. It is not the year necessarily to need that QB and have the pick to get the QB.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see how he plays the rest of the year. I mean, the thing is, like Carson Beck, he was so bad against Alabama, and then he was good against Alabama. And I watched the Florida game last week, and he threw a couple of those interceptions he threw were just brutal. Like, it's like,
Terrible.
What are you looking at, man? It's all, but then he'll make like a 35-yard throw on the sideline that is an NFL level throw, and you're like, okay, well, where's that all game long? It's really mystifying to watch him play football right now.
Yeah, it's not consistent enough. And yeah, obviously you take away, I mean, the running game isn't as good, but also, I mean, obviously you take away McConkey and Bowers, right? It just those are huge losses for him. He's good, but yeah, he's not that guy, I don't think. Now, hey, maybe we'll find out that, he'll tear it up and get in the playoff and clean up the mistakes, but it's been underwhelming for sure. Garrett from Clarksville, semi-hot take, Tennessee will lose to Vandy and Vandy will storm the field again. We're already getting ready for that one, man. There's a lot of big games in between, but that's such a better and more interesting game than I ever thought it would be.
I've thought about this.
I don't even want to watch it.
Going back to the Alabama thing, like if you're a Tennessee fan, should you root for LSU to beat Alabama, which would effectively eliminate Alabama? And then you look at LSU. Now, LSU's schedule is not overly daunting down the stretch here after Alabama. They got Florida on the road, which, we'll see. They got Vanderbilt, and then they got Oklahoma. Like, I'm not overly confident that LSU is going to run the table during that stretch. They'll be favored in all those, I would assume. But if you're a Tennessee fan, should you root for LSU on Saturday to eliminate Alabama and then take your chances that a Florida or a Vanderbilt or an Oklahoma takes down LSU?
It's a great question. I mean, first of all, you should. I think you root for Alabama. I think you root for Alabama because that win is just stronger. Like the stronger that win can be, as I just think it's just like with basketball, bad losses don't count as much as good wins. Good wins, like who did you beat? How impressive are your victories, right? And I just think that the stronger the Alabama win can look, the better for Tennessee. Obviously, so much of this is going to be like if they go to Georgia, of course, winning the other games. And again, I do think it's a game here with Vanderbilt for sure. And then being like going down there and stopping the tradition of annually getting your butt kicked by Georgia, going down there, and there's no reason that they should just go down there and get their butts kicked this year. No way.
Their defense
this is not
should
the same
keep
Georgia
them in that game. They
100%.
Look, we found out the start time yesterday. It's 6:30 on ABC. So it's a night game at Georgia. The place is going to be going nuts. I know when I guess Tennessee fans leaked Stetson Bennett's phone number a couple years ago, and that place is going crazy out there. So, like, the environment's going to be great. Like, Georgia's going to be favored. Georgia should be favored in that game. But, like, Tennessee's defense should keep them in that game with a chance to win, I think.
Yes, absolutely. And, Tennessee's offense, I've seen some, like this week, a little bit of like, people writing about Nico and stuff. It's like, man, I think Nico took a real step last week. I mean, he's got to continue that. I mean, Mississippi State should be a nice way to like keep confidence going.
They better score some first half points against Mississippi State.
Yeah, you would think first, second, halftime. I mean, they should be scoring, frequently against Mississippi State. But I think Nico, that was lost in all their first half stuff, is that I think he's taking strides right now.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. The NFL trade deadline going on today at 3 o'clock. We will get back into the Predators and their debacle last night a little bit later in the program as well. The Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode is coming up next. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Sometimes he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed. And sometimes he's just, well, Joe.
Awkward moment. Let's do it.
This is the Rex Rant, now on Robby and Rexrode.
Welcome back to the Fat and Bald Show. See us more now.
We all say things that are stupid. I do all the time. You've got to embrace taking an L sometimes.
I don't
and just
understand
moving on from something.
I don't
just
understand
move
what's
on.
stupid about this when I was right.
I guess maybe he is dumb. I'm going to find out which house they're coming from, and I'm going to egg your house. Okay? So I'm making you a promise right now.
It is that time of the day. Time for the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode. Very good work by Nick Keyser to put all that together. Very nicely done. Joseph, the floor is yours with this wonderful music in the background.
What was the egg? Remind me the egging your house thing.
Fireworks.
Oh, that's right, the fireworks.
If you don't stop shooting those fireworks, I'm pelting your houses with eggs.
Yeah, when you're dogs, and it freaks them out so much. You know, if you're a dog owner, it's a different deal, man. Okay, speaking of fireworks, 4th of July, this is, I mean, let's all be honest here. This is a huge day for our country, folks. Okay? A huge, huge day. And I'm here to tell you that I need you to choose accordingly. The stakes are incredibly high, and I'm going to tell you what to do. And this may be controversial. I don't care. I feel too strongly to keep quiet about it. So Robby, Nick, Chase, but all of you, you're going to have to bear with me, and you're going to have to hear me out.
Okay.
This is what I need you to do today. Live your life and live it well, because it's going to continue after today. Go take a walk.
Hopefully.
Take your dogs for a walk. Yes. Make your kids breakfast. Take your kids to school. Let a car go in front of you at a crowded intersection. If someone flips you off, smile back at them. Don't litter. If you see someone else littering, pick up a piece of trash. Be kind, please rewind. Bring positive energy. Open the door for someone. Make a sandwich. Read a book. Volunteer. Go to church. Go to the bar. Touch grass. Tonight, watch the college football playoff rankings and some action, and leave Steve Kornacki's projections to someone else. Do literally like damn near anything, not criminal activity, but damn near anything, except base your entire existence on the outcome of this election for the 47th president of the United States. Like, if you think the world ends if your candidate of choice doesn't win today, or even if you just think our country is going to stop functioning if your candidate of choice doesn't win today, you're wrong. Stop it. You are part of the problem. If your candidate and political party are essentially your religion, you need to find a new religion. Whatever happens today and tonight, we're all going to wake up tomorrow, and we're going to be expected to be responsible, law-abiding citizens who must live together and try to function in a society. If you aren't prepared to do that, if you can't think back and realize that these presidential elections have happened your whole life and they probably haven't affected your life all that much, then you know what? Never mind. Stay home, shut up, stay the hell off the internet, and let the rest of us live our lives. Thank you.
Well said. I really enjoyed that. Fired Up Rexrode is my favorite Rexrode.
I was trying to get you freaked out like I was going to, make my official presidential endorsement.
I thought you might for a minute.
Yeah. So, it's just, I've never seen anything like this.
I've done my level best to avoid all of it. We'll see how it goes throughout the day. But yeah, everything you just said, I think is pretty spot on as it relates to the way that this should be approached. I was thinking about this when I woke up this morning, Joe, and here's kind of a microcosm of how this whole thing affects our lives. If you had to elect a president of the National Football League, who would it be? Basically, I'm replacing Roger Goodell, but you have to go vote on it. Who would it be?
A president of the National Football League.
Yes.
Okay, so, but then it would be essentially a person who would like take over the role of commissioner.
Yes,
like basically,
pretty much.
Yeah. Like you get to vote in the commissioner, but we'll call him the president.
Right.
I think I might think about. I hate to be a total Vol homer, but I think I might think about Peyton Manning.
Look at there.
Yeah. I just feel like he's pretty level-headed and has the game's best interest at heart, and he isn't a dill hole.
Are you going to find
Like
anybody
some?
that's more of a Vol quarterback lover than Joe Rexrode? Campaigning for the Titans to go get Hendon Hooker today, and now wants to make Peyton Manning the president of the National Football League.
Well, imagine the scene as Peyton hands the Lombardi to Hendon Hooker.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, man. You know, we're like 3 years from that.
A warm embrace that would happen after that, too.
What's your answer?
I think it's Belichick, and it wouldn't have been Belichick prior to him doing television. But he's been so entertaining on television, and quite frankly, my favorite part about him on TV is he says exactly what he thinks, which doesn't happen very often on TV anymore. I think he would be great as a president of the National Football League. My other guess was going to be Brady, but that was more so to make you mad than anything else. So Belichick is my answer.
Yeah, it's not Brady.
He's doing enough.
Yeah, let's see if he can get up to be like a half-ass announcer. I don't know. What did you think of his call the other day?
I did not hear much of it. I was at an establishment, and there was a lot of things going on. But I did not hear much of it.
It was okay, but again, it's like he's like the fourth team. Should be on the fourth team on a network. See, Belichick is a thought, but maybe it's like someone with a little more runway. Maybe someone who doesn't have to like make daily stops at daycare, things like that. And it wouldn't be distracted.
He's making a lot of TikToks right now. Did you see his Halloween costume?
Like the Halloween thing where his girlfriend is like a mermaid and he has a fishing pole? Yes. I'm not sure that that's president of the NFL material. I say Peyton.
In our first act as president of the National Football League, mandatory duck, duck, goose for everyone at minicamp. Who says no?
Okay. Are we doing Chutes and Ladders or Candyland?
Instead of water breaks, y'all get pouches that you can go eat that have fruit in them. Really good stuff. I saw that pic. Well,
ready, Bill.
you know, you don't know what's real and what's not in some cases on the internet anymore. I will say, when I saw the picture of Belichick in the costume, basically with a fishing pole reeling in his mermaid girlfriend from the ocean, my first thought was, there's no way this is real. And then it turns out, Joe, that it was. That's what Bill Belichick's doing.
I must say, that is pretty badass by Bill. I gotta say.
Is.
You got to lean into it, man.
He kind of is.
You got to lean into it.
Ken from Mount Juliet says, Joe, that was the best rant ever. Amen, amen, and amen. This from Ken. Joe getting a lot of praise on the text line right now.
Thank you, Ken. I appreciate that. I'm actually surprised there's not some people screaming at me about how like their candidate actually has to win or we're all going to die.
Well, just give it some time. It might happen.
I haven't gone to the YouTube chat. YouTube chat, don't let me down.
Well, YouTube chat's been a little bit of an angry place lately, so we'll see what that looks like. 615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. It is NFL trade deadline day. We'll keep you updated on the latest moves in the NFL. By the way, another one just happened, so we'll get into that. Coming up next as well, Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Welcome back in. Final hour, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Tuesday morning. It is NFL trade deadline day. The deadline today at 3 o'clock. We've already seen some moves start to trickle in today. And the question is, will the Tennessee Titans be active today on the final day of allowed trade activity in the National Football League? If you missed it earlier, Zadarius Smith traded from the Cleveland Browns to the Detroit Lions. So the Lions receive Zadarius Smith and a 2026 seventh-round pick. Detroit sends Cleveland a 2025 fifth-round pick and a 2026 sixth-round pick. This according to Adam Schefter from ESPN, who put that out there. So a significant move made today by the Lions already, acquiring Zadarius Smith to help out at edge rusher. Another trade has been made. The Chicago Bears sending running back Khalil Herbert to the Cincinnati Bengals. I have not seen the terms yet on that trade, but the Bears sending running back Khalil Herbert to the Cincinnati Bengals. So there's another trade for you, Joe.
Huh. Okay. So is that the Bears acknowledging? I mean, it's not a huge move. It might just be.
Well, Zach Moss is out indefinitely for Cincinnati, so they needed some help at the running back position. I'd be interested to see what the price they gave up for. I can't imagine it's a huge price. I'm looking at Khalil Herbert's stats right now. He's got 8 carries for 16 yards in 6 games this year. So I don't imagine it's a very steep price that the Bengals paid for this. So a minor deal and a significant deal with the Zadarius Smith stuff so far.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I guess that isn't really a commentary on either team. I guess the Bengals making any kind of ad. The Bengals have to take this all the way to the very end, right? Of until they're actually eliminated. Given where they are with the roster, the receivers, and everything, like they have to find a way.
Apparently, Jeremy Fowler putting it out there that is a 7th-round pick. So the Bears get a 7th-round pick in exchange for Khalil Herbert going to the Bengals. So there you go. A minor move made by the Bears and the Bengals, and a significant move made by the Lions to acquire Zadarius Smith. The Lions didn't give up a ton in order to do it. So I take that, and I view it. Obviously, there's the Harold Landry stuff that we've talked about. Arden Key becoming a more popular name in trade talks last couple of weeks, at least around here, and trying to determine what that could look like. But if that's all that Zadarius Smith is going for is a 2025 fifth-rounder and a 2026 sixth-rounder, I would not imagine that the return for Arden Key would be very high if you're the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, no, that would speak to pretty to me a return that's not worth doing the deal. I think there's this like general idea of, we've had some on the text on a day of like, you got to think for the future. You all sell, but again, it's like, if you're getting nothing but the very bottom of the barrel picks, yes, accumulation, the more that you have, the more in theory that you could put together, but those are still low value picks. Even if you try to have 3 7th-rounders, what do you think? I mean, it doesn't do a ton for you. So I think you have to think about what football players that you want moving forward, who can play football. Arden Key can play it well enough. You don't want him to be a starter. You'd like him to be your 3rd guy, probably.
I would say so.
But you move him, and now you have to find another 3rd guy, along with you absolutely have to, the Titans in this offseason, find a difference maker to complement Landry.
So I would say the likelihood is the team that the Titans have as we sit here today at 8:06 on Tuesday morning is probably the team that they're going to have by the time the end of the deadline rolls around. And we'll see. We'll see what happens. I mean, crazier things that have happened than somebody else getting moved by the Titans today. I threw this question out earlier, and I would be interested to know everybody's response to it. Like, what would it take today for you to give legitimate consideration if you're Rand Carthon, Chad Brinker, Brian Callahan, to moving a Jeffrey Simmons or a Harold Landry? Now, the equation has changed since we asked that question, particularly on the Landry front, right? Like Zadarius Smith going for a 5th and a 6th rounder. What would a Harold Landry go for? at that point. You know, Simmons is different. It's a different position. It's a different role, all those things. But if you're the Titans, what would it take for you to give legitimate consideration from moving on from either one of those guys today if somebody calls and comes knocking on Jeffrey Simmons and or Harold Landry?
Yeah, you could look at the Simmons situation almost like, the circle of life. And you go back to when the Titans brought in Simmons and they had Jarrell Casey and they moved on from Jarrell Casey. It seemed a little early. I actually was like, man, I was looking forward to a full season in 2020 of Casey and Simmons together and what that would have looked like. Well, John Robinson moved on early. I don't remember. I think he maybe got a fourth, something like that, from Denver, but obviously it turned out, and no one could have known, but I think Casey tore his Achilles and he was done shortly after that. It turned out to be one of those move on earlier than you might think, as opposed to too late, right? Move on too early instead of too late. And a lot of times too early works out for you.
By the way, a 7th round pick is what the deal was. 7th round pick to the Titans from Denver.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there you go. See, I was on a roll and remembering things, and now that my streak is broken. But I guess the one difference with those two is, when Simmons, who was coming off the ACL as a rookie, last half of 2019, especially maybe last third of 2019, you start to see like, oh boy, you can see it with that guy, right? I mean, I don't know that right now. I think Tavondre Sweat has been pretty good. He's been underwhelming to me, considering what I thought maybe he would do this year after camp. And a lot of football to go. I don't know that you feel like, that he can be the anchor, and then now you can move on and trade this contract away and get something significant back. I mean, it's a different, it's similar in a way, but it's different too.
Well, it is kind of amazing. I said, after the Miami game, if he plays like he did in the Miami game, then that pick could end up being a steal for the Titans. And I don't know that I've noticed Tavondre Sweat one time since then. It's kind of amazing how that's played out.
Yeah, it hasn't. He has not been as impactful. The guy who was unbelievable the other day is Sebastian Joseph Day.
Yeah.
My goodness. I mean, I guess you could look at it like, well, that's what happens when, guys who have to be doubled, then someone else should be taking advantage of it. And maybe there's some of that in that situation. But I'm with you, Sweat. You want to see a little bit more from him as things move forward.
Somebody asked, like, if somebody offered you 2 second-rounders for Simmons, would you take it? I'd definitely take it. I don't think that would be the offer. Like, I'm not convinced. Maybe I'm wrong on this. Maybe somebody would. I don't know that I'm convinced the Titans could get a second for him at this point. When you factor in the production and the contract, I don't know.
Right. That's the thing. It's the contract is always a huge mitigator. It's a big price dropper for these teams, in part because why, Robby, as we talk about our little text thread yesterday that I decided to start a fight, because the cap is real. Yes, thank you.
Ongoing discussion that I think at this point has been going 4 years, 5 years.
It's not really discussion. Just every once in a while, I just like to make fun of Jared because he decided to die on that ridiculously dumb hill.
I think that you two should keep this thing going for as long as possible. And I have faith in both of you that you will.
Thing is, I don't want to, and I say that a day after sending him a text, but it's just the entire NFL media yesterday was writing and talking about how the Saints cap situation that they keep kicking down the road has finally caught up to them, which is true. Is it more about quarterback than anything? Sure. But yes, they are a great example of you can't do it eternally, and you do have to pay the bill at some point. That's why all these teams pay like $1 million to someone to figure out the cap for him, because it's real. But anyway,
let me ask you an NFL at large question.
Okay.
Does a quarterback get moved today? And by quarterback, the guys that I have in mind are Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson, someone like that. Does somebody move one of those guys today?
Zero chance Anthony Richardson.
Okay.
There's no way. I mean, those guys would I think
they might get fired on the spot.
I mean, Irsay might sell the franchise
if he's conscious.
There's no way. Right. Bryce Young, that franchise is enough of a bleep show that I guess I give it a small chance of happening.
What about Justin Fields?
I think that's a possibility. although, again, if you're the Steelers, it's like, it's great to have a backup that if Russ gets hurt, right? I mean, you're in it for the run, and you need to have some security at QB2, and it's very possible they'll end up having to turn back to him. Look, I know I keep bringing him up, GB Joe here, but what about Hendon Hooker?
Yeah.
If a team has a little bit more of a sort of lifetime reliable backup dude, who the Lions would be like, okay, that's fine, take him, and then there's some security there. But in the meantime, here, take this kid and give him a real opportunity, because right now, Jared Goff is at this point. When is Jared Goff unseated as a starting quarterback of the Lions? We're talking years.
He's on a path to being greatest quarterback of all time this year, man. He's got like a 90% completion percentage. Chase on our text line keeps bringing up Kyle Trask. I do not see Kyle Trask being a legitimate option for somebody to be a starting quarterback moving forward. That's just me.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I mean, maybe at some point he gets an opportunity, but I don't know that people are clamoring for Kyle Trask. Coy in Clarksville. Yeah, that's right. Casey for 7th. Because why, Coy? Because he had a huge cap hit.
How about that? 615-737-1025.
Cap.
Our phone number. More of your thoughts on the NFL trading deadline coming up next. What will the Titans do? We will get back into the Nashville Predators and a very bad performance for them last night. About to go on the road for a while coming up for the Predators. 8 of their next 9 will be at home. We'll get into all that throughout the remainder of the show today. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, broadcasting live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Taking your thoughts on the NFL trade deadline, 615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. Eli from Smyrna says, let Rand cook, Titans in win now mode, he says sarcastically. Steven says, I would trade Simmons for a first and a second, and Landry for a second and a fifth. I don't think you're getting anywhere close to that on either one of those guys. That's just me. Especially based on the trade that just went down with Zadarius Smith. The Simmons thing's a little bit different, but like based on the way he's played, you're not getting a first round pick for Jeffrey Simmons. It's just not happening.
Yeah, you would get that in like 2021 when he was dominant and he was on his rookie deal.
Yeah,
you might get a first and a second. He's not dominant and he's not on a rookie deal. You're taking on a lot of money for a diminished player. So yeah, you're not. I mean, honestly,
he did play very well on Sunday though against New England. He did.
Yeah, someone asking for Levis to get traded. Again, Lions, you want Levis? How about just a Levis Hooker trade?
Any path to get Hendon Hooker to the Tennessee Titans is a path that Joe Rexrode is for. I can't wait to discuss this with Kuharski tomorrow.
Well, look, we're talking Titans, but in all seriousness, I want Hendon Hooker to have a path to an opportunity.
I agree.
He doesn't have it. It's just, and like when they picked him, I was like, no, I kind of get that. I mean, Goff, that's short timer, but things have changed since they drafted Hendon Hooker. I mean, the last
thrown
season
an incomplete pass since then.
I know. So I mean, it's just and then he had the season he had last year with Hooker hurt. He got paid, and he's playing at an even higher level now. So it's just I could and that's where if you're the Lions, isn't there maybe some appeal in okay, you know what, this kid it's probably not happening here unless Goff gets hurt. So isn't there some appeal in how about a little bit more seasoned backup if we do have an issue as opposed to, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it makes sense. I think it's worth a phone call. I'll put it that way. Like if you're the Titans or anybody else, and with the caveat being, I mean, obviously you'd have to feel pretty decent about Hendon Hooker. But like I think it's worth the phone call of what do you guys think about taking on maybe more of a veteran backup and sending us Hendon Hooker? And whatever draft compensation would have to go along with that is something you could work out. But no, I think your thought process on it makes total sense to me. Like if you're the Lions, having an experienced backup just in case Goff goes down may not be the worst thing in the world. By the way, Goff's numbers, I just want to read them to you real quick. He has completed 75% of his passes, 1,840 yards, 14 touchdowns, 4 picks, averaging 8.7 a catch or 8.7 a throw. That's pretty wild.
Well, it is. In the last 2 weeks, he's had like 80 yards and 100 yards because the Titans kept giving him the ball at the 10.
Yeah.
And last week in Green Bay was, just a sloppy, just wasn't a passing game. So, I mean, like the numbers have actually gone down in terms of per attempt and all that stuff pretty significantly in 2 games. So no, he's been ridiculous. And they're the team that, because of the offensive line, the running backs and all that stuff, like a caretaker QB can win games with them, Yeah. And I mean, honestly, all due respect to Jared Goff, he's a very good game manager. That's what he is.
And remember, you said with all due respect. Stilly texted me in my own personal text line, says if Goff goes down, they're signing Ryan Tannehill. That's a team I could see Ryan Tannehill being like, yep, I'll go do that.
I 100% agree. I 100% agree. It's funny because I was seriously going to say that, and I didn't know he texted that to you. No, I think that's exactly. But I mean, it's still like if you were talking right now, because it's not like for sure you'd get him. The season backup might be worth a conversation. Speaking of Stilly, texter says, can we agree Stilly has an agenda to get rid of Rand and Brinker? He says his agenda is to win, but he didn't cheer for a win Sunday. I will semi-defend him if I understand his position. His agenda is to have a winning team. So, I mean, winning over the Patriots Sunday does not make you a winning team, right? I mean, It makes you 2-6. They're terrible. arguably the worst team in the NFL. You beat them in overtime. So I don't think Stilly has a personal agenda. I do think that Stilly wants to fire, and would be a horrific owner or decision maker for any sort of sports outfit.
Well, he's definitely got an agenda
demonstrating that with his takes.
There's definitely an agenda to get rid of Rand and Brinker. I mean, he's talked about that. He wants to clean house. So, I mean, the agenda is there. Now, I don't think it's like some personal vendetta.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, he doesn't have a personal thing. It's just, he doesn't think they're good. But again, this is where it's like, so he would call that telling it like it is, right? I would say you're kind of telling it like it isn't, which he does more than anybody at this station, because it's all spin. It's all like, here's all the negative stuff they're doing. There's nothing good they're doing. I don't think objectively that's true. And you may disagree with me, Robbie. I mean, it's more bad than good. The free agency situation looks pretty rough right now. Is L'Jarius Sneed still on the team? L'Jarius. Hey, L'Jarius, are you still there? So that's not good. The Levis pick, obviously, at some point, like everybody's going to claim they didn't make the pick.
Yes.
But, the draft class of last year looks pretty good right now. It's not all bad. And it's very early. So the idea that you're firing people this early when it's not 100% bad is telling it like it isn't.
It is about 90% bad.
90?
There's a lot of bad.
It's more bad than good. I don't know, but it's 90-10. I guess this is
pretty bad.
I think last week I had this thing like, let's break it down. Then maybe we need to actually try to do the math and like assign values to things and try to come up with a formula.
But hey, Ridley's looked okay the last 2 weeks, so maybe that's turning around.
Yeah. I mean, that's a huge part of it. That's got to continue. But early on, it was not good. So, I mean, is Sneed ever going to play again? Is Awuzie ever going to play?
You talk about somebody I legitimately forgot was on the team. Yeah, Woozy fits in that category.
I mean, we were sitting there talking about like this is the best corner group on paper the Titans have ever had in franchise history, and we've never seen them play football together.
It's pretty unbelievable. By the way, Stilly's taking all sorts of shots at you on Twitter. Says Joe Rexrode thinks Detroit could send the Titans a second-round pick and Hendon Hooker for Harold Landry and Mason Rudolph. Just got a fifth for a guy who's headed to the Hall of Fame and caught 2 touchdowns last night, referring to DeAndre Hopkins. A second for Landry, crying, laughing emoji. And then when the comp update came out for Zadarius Smith, he said, LOL. And Joe talked about a first and then later a second for Harold Landry. Just 0 cents of NFL value. This is from Stilly on Twitter.
Wow. I hope he feels better. I hope he's enjoying that. That's too bad I don't follow him on Twitter. As I've said, I said it to him, but again, this is a great example of Stilly, the master of telling it like it isn't. He doesn't want to hear what people say to him. He wants to make arguments and spin things and not listen and twist words. As I said, that's the absolute desperation scenario. And that's where I put my foot. That's where I draw the line in the sand. Did I actually think that's going to happen? No. I've said that all along. But thank you, Stilly. Enjoy your Twitter. Enjoy your X.
Got a lot of people asking, who is L'Jarius Sneed? Does he play for the Titans? Wow. Jeez. Hopefully he'll get back on the field at some point. That would be nice. 615-737-1025, our phone number. 615-737-1025. We will keep you updated on the latest of the NFL trade deadline moves as they happen here on the program. We'll get back into the Predators as well coming up next. A 3-0 shutout loss last night. Some very interesting comments in the locker room and from the head coach after the game. We'll get into all that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game.
Yeah, gosh, I think we need to. I think we need to get out of town and figure this out because it's, yeah, I don't know. It's very frustrating right now. And yeah, the road, I think it's a little easier. I think you can show up and, just play. I think that's what we need to do. Just I think it's a little simpler on the road. Tend to play a more simpler game, and that's what we need. It's just going to come down to, winning battles. And yeah, I think on the road we can just kind of go at it a bit more.
That's Ryan O'Reilly. Last night after the Preds game, they lose 3-0 to the LA Kings. Dropped to 4-7-1 on the season. 9 of their first 12, Joe, have been at home. They are 3-6 in those home games. So obviously, that is not good. And that's something that's got to get better as they move forward here. Preds are about to play, I believe, 8 of their next 9 on the road. So they got 2 road games coming up this week in Washington and in Florida. They're back at home Saturday against Utah, and then they head out west as they do every November. So a lot of road games coming up for the Predators. We'll see how they respond to that. In the meantime, based on what we've seen to this point, not been very good. Saturday, it kind of felt like they took somewhat of a step in the right direction against a Colorado team that, albeit, is pretty banged up right now, but the Predators took advantage of that. And then last night, Joe, it just kind of felt like a huge step back. And you can sense the frustration in the locker room. And I asked Ryan O'Reilly about that after the game. Here's what Ryan O'Reilly had to say about frustration creeping into his game and the team's game as a whole.
You talk about the frustration. Can you feel that, creeping into your guys' game as a whole right now?
Yeah, I know for myself, I'm extremely frustrated. That was probably one of the worst games I think I've ever played, from generating and making plays and losing battles. As a group too, yeah, just, we're build and then we just take a step back and, it's frustration throughout. People feel it through our bench and feel everywhere. Everyone feels it, and we have to dig deeper to find a way out of it.
So, Joe, I ask you, what's the concern level with the Nashville Predators right now at 4-7-1?
I typically can't find a lot of it at this time of year, but I don't think you can ignore anymore the overall underwhelming play, the struggles to get anything going in the offensive zone 5-on-5, and just some of these comments. I mean, some of these comments, I asked it earlier, I asked it again now, like, is there some sort of a chemistry thing here? I've kind of chalked some of this up to, early season stuff, new guys, system is hard, even for returnees. Like, you got to get into the groove. Like, it's obviously like it's a effective system when you do it well, and it's hard to get to that, which I guess you could then criticize. Is that is that the best system to run? But obviously, look at what it did for them last year. Look what they did last year in the second half, or after the U2 concert. They needed a concert canceled ASAP. Did. But no, I mean, is there like is a new addition problematic for them in some way? Like, is this go beyond the ice, or am I overreacting to some of the things that are being said now?
I don't know. Like, it's hard for me to imagine with what we know about some of these guys. Like Steven Stamkos, we know is the type of leader and player he's been. Same thing with Marchessault. Brady Shea doesn't have the pedigree that those two guys have, but like, we know about these guys. I would be shocked if there's like some off ice problem going on right now. But like, when you're this inconsistent, and inconsistent is not even the right word. Like, they've been pretty consistently bad 5-on-5. When that's been the case this long, then I think you start to open up the door to everything. Like, is there a chemistry problem? And there's clearly a chemistry problem on the ice. They're having trouble finding that. But, like, does it go even deeper than that? Is there something that they just, for whatever reason, are either clashing on right now, or they're just not connecting with? Right? I don't know. I think last night was a pretty severe step back. Like, they couldn't get anything going in the offensive zone. And yes, some of that is credit to LA. Like, I thought LA did a good job playing defense, and particularly, LA down the middle with Kopitar, Byfield, and Danault. That's a pretty darn good trio they've got down the middle that's good on both ends of the ice. So I thought Kopitar in particular just took a couple Predators to school last night. But it highlights, number one, their center depth is a big problem. And I've been screaming about that for the last 3 months. Like, Ryan O'Reilly is a good player. I'm not sure he's a number one center at this point in his career, but he's probably a really good number two. Tommy Novak's he's not a number two center. Yuso Parsonen is not a number two center. Colton Sissons is not a number two center. And right now, basically on a game-by-game basis, they are searching for somebody to play with Steven Stamkos, and they can't find it. They cannot find it right now. So not that that's the only issue with the team, but I do think that's symptomatic of kind of where they're at with the roster right now.
Yeah, and you've been screaming that all along, and they just keep proving it over and over again. David in Watertown, I think that's one thing with Brunette. Like I do kind of agree on it's like they lose, there's guaranteed to be line changes, you know, like there's a lot of change. You could nitpick that, I would say, and maybe but again, I mean, if things are going poorly, what do you do as a coach, right? Texter says, what did they do last year? A first round playoff loss where they got absolutely bodied by the Canucks? Well, yeah, but what they did from February on was basically be the best team in hockey. And I mean, that series with the Canucks I would call that a competitive series.
Yeah.
They got to figure out a way
totally
to not
blew a game where they
not completely give them a game at home. And I'd be interested to know the outcome. I think that's a little bit of that's a Stilly-like spin on that. Little telling it like it isn't.
Brandy says, I keep noticing some of the guys keep trying to pass it to Stamkos, Marchessault, and Forsberg instead of taking the shot themselves. Big guys are covered and easily stripped of the puck. Like, I do think there's something to that, and Brunette's talked about it. Like, I think there is some deferring that's continuing to happen out there where you're just trying to force it to some of these guys rather than just shooting the puck. And look, I think sometimes we get a little bit too much into shooting the puck. Like, they've led the league in shots on goal. They just haven't been very good shots. Last night they didn't get anything. Like they went 16 minutes into the third period without getting a shot on goal. It's bad right now. And that's the record is concerning, right? You're 4-7-1. That's obviously not where you want to be. But if you're starting to build your game, then I think not that you want that, but you can live with it. You start to dig your way out of it. It's not an insurmountable hole. Like they were 5-10 last year and they dug their way out of it and they got into the playoffs. What's concerning to me right now is they don't look close to figuring it out. Like I thought last night was a huge step back in the wrong direction. 5-on-5, they're just getting dummied right now out there. I mean, heading into the game last night, they were getting outscored, I think 28-12, 5-on-5. The power play had been coming along, and then last night the power play was awful. Like they couldn't even get set up in the zone. So like it just, you watch them play right now and it doesn't feel like a solution is right around the corner. And that's what's concerning to me 12 games in, more than just the record.
The 6 o'clock hour, Robbie, a lot of fire Burnett. In the 8 o'clock hour, there's none of that. It's a lot of really interesting theories. Why is that? The people are like really ornery in the 6 o'clock hour.
I mean, I don't blame them. It's pretty early.
Get a little coffee, get a little eggs in you, feel a little. Here's an interesting text, non-named texter. How much of a Pred slump could be attributed to no big names trying to scoop a new contract? Players tend to catch fire when they're at the end of their deal. Any chance we got some fat and happy contracted players who aren't playing with fire just yet? I don't think so, but I appreciate the creative thought there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't buy that. Matter of fact, I think there are times that they're trying to do too much, which is some of the problem, right? Like I think a lot of times when you're overpassing, people think that that's from like a lack of aggression. I think when they're struggling as much as they are right now, they're trying so hard to make the perfect play that it's totally counterproductive. And Brunette's kind of alluded to that. Like they had a couple looks in the slot last night where they just didn't shoot. And it's not just a last night thing. Like they've done that all year. And some of that's probably deferring to some of these other guys. And some of it, I think, is like when you don't have confidence in your shot, in the way you're playing, which not a lot of guys do right now. I think you try to do too much at times. And oftentimes that's counterproductive. Like in the clip we played coming back, O'Reilly talked about going on the road and simplifying things. And I think sometimes people think simplifying things mean, oh, they're just going to go out there and dump and chase and play boring hockey. No, sometimes simplifying things means, hey, when you got a shot, take it. Stop trying to make the perfect pass. Just take the shot. And I think that they need more of that in their game right now.
Yeah. Here's another interesting one. Bruno plays fast, aggressive, high pressure offense. Then we go to the Senior Citizen Center to grab some free agents. Now we wonder why the old guys can't keep up and they look slow. Yeah, I think most teams would take a shot on an old senior citizen named Steven Stamkos. And
by the way, Stamkos is skating fine. It's not like he's not like he's skating in quicksand out there. People make way too much of the foot speed. And I'm not saying foot speed's not important, but we've talked about this before. You can move no matter how fast you skate. I don't care if it's Connor McDavid out there. You can move the puck up the ice a whole lot quicker than you can move your skates up the ice. So if you're connected and you're playing well, like look, last year's team generated
fast as hell.
They generated a ton of odd man rushes. They looked very quick. Was it because they had a bunch of Blazers out there? No, it's because they moved the puck really well and were connected. So I don't put a whole lot of stock into the foot speed or lack of. Would you like to have everybody that could skate like Roman Yossi? Sure. I think they got plenty of good skaters. I don't think that that's the chief problem with them right now.
No. The greatest fast break in basketball history was led by a lumbering 6'9" dude because of passing.
Yep. 615.
There you go. See ya. Take it to basketball, baby.
Attaboy. 615-737-1025. A lot more of your thoughts to get to on the Preds. We'll do that coming up next. Our final thoughts on the NFL trading deadline as well. All that coming up. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game.
Yeah, we've sensed it for a while, and we just can't seem to correct it and get over it. I think I've talked about it enough here over the last couple of weeks about how it's a dangerous emotion, and it's getting the best of us, and it's kind of unfortunately leaked through almost the whole team. And frustration plays tricks on you. Frustration makes you think you're actually working when you're not working. Frustration actually makes you a poor teammate. Frustration is contagious. So those are some pretty bad things, and that's kind of leaked through our group right now.
As Andrew Burnett, after the game last night, Preds fall to 4-7-1 on the season. Joe, I've said it earlier in the show, I'm usually pretty patient. My concern level is pretty high with them right now. It just doesn't look like they're on the verge of answers at the moment. I do wonder how Barry Trotz views this right now and what the patience level looks like from him. And I'm not talking about the coaching part of this, because we've had a lot of people ask about this today, and this is just my sense on it. I could be totally wrong. I think if you were Barry Trotz has never had to fire a coach before as the general manager. But my guess is, number one, from being around him as much as I have been, number two, for the benefit of the doubt at times that he got here in Nashville, particularly early, and how patient David Poile was with him as they were building this thing. And number three, the fact that he chose Andrew Burnett. He obviously feels confident in what he's doing. Like if you're a Predators fan out there that thinks that like a firing is imminent with the coach, I just wouldn't hold your breath on that. Like I think Barry Trotz as a general manager is going to be just about as patient as it gets as it comes to the coaching part of this. So that's my read on it. I could be wrong about that, but I do wonder, does he look to shake something up here? Like there's not a ton you can do with the roster, right? Like a lot of these guys are locked in to long-term deals. Obviously, you just went out and got Marchessault, Stamkos, Shea. None of those guys are going anywhere. But like, does he look to rock the boat a little bit here? I said it earlier. It was 7 years ago today that they made the Kyle Turris trade. So trades have happened early in the season. I think it's very difficult to pull off because there's just not a ton of people available this early in the season. But I wonder if Barry Trotz tries to rock the boat. I'm looking at Puckpedia right now, which I guess for the moment is kind of like the replacement for Cap Friendly. And the Predators have like a little bit over $4 million in cap space. So not a ton to work with right now. So there's not much you can do, but I do wonder how Trotz views it from that standpoint.
Yeah. At some point, they're going to have to address that. But obviously there are deeper issues right now. Like that's the piece that now you're ready to really make a run. Right now they're like, they're 5 improvements behind that or whatever it is. Like they have so much to work out. Andrew Burnett, I feel like typically I know exactly what he's saying. I think he's a very clear communicator.
Yeah.
And is willing to, I think he's good. I think actually both of the pro coaches in this town right now it's pretty good press conference situation. We had a stretch of Hines and Vrabel. Woo, baby. Lavi and do we have Lavi and Vrabel together? Yeah, we had that together a little bit. Oh, yeah. Oh, boy. I'll tell you what. But I really would like to know more about what the heck Burnett was talking about in that clip that we came in with here on this segment. Because it just sounds like it's just more than this whole like you're frustrated, like you're not working what you think you are, and the affecting you as a teammate. Those two things perk my ears up and make me, it's a little bit cryptic, which again, is not typical for him. And it really makes me wonder what the heck is going on. Someone on the text line saying, do they resent Stamkos? I don't think that's it. Stamkos, these guys were thrilled to get Stamkos. It means they have a chance to go do something big.
Yeah.
And Stamkos, by all accounts, is a great teammate.
I don't think that's the problem.
But there's something in here that's beyond, to me, just like a team struggling to find its game.
Let's quickly go back to our 102.5 The Game phone line. Welcome in Daryl. Daryl, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Good.
I'm a South Florida transplant and a big Florida Panthers fan. And the year after Quenneville got let go for his troubles, they hired Burnett. The big complaint about Burnett was he was a player's coach and got along with the players, but when it came to crunch time, he had trouble. Basically the reason I think Florida got rid of him is because of his in-game decisions at crunch time. They won the President's Trophy that year and got swept. If I'm not mistaken, I think they got swept
Tampa
by
Bay.
Tampa in the first round.
Yes.
But I think it's the personnel struggle with him as far as making in-game adjustments. I'll hang up and listen. Thanks.
Yep. Thanks for the call, Daryl. Look, is he a player's coach? Probably a little bit. Yeah. I can tell you this. I was watching practice on Friday when he was basically, I can't even describe what he was doing to them with FCC compilations, but it wasn't much of a player's coach on Friday. I'll put it that way. So
just to clarify what he was saying, not what he was doing.
Right. What he was saying. So there's,
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It was very vulgar out there. I'll put it that way.
Good for him.
They got a lot of things that they got to figure out. By the way, DeAndre Hopkins has clarified his celebration last night. A shout out to Tennessee. If you know him, it's nothing but love for Nashville. Rand and his crew are like family. Without them, I wouldn't be here. So there you go. DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah.
Shout out to the Titans last night.
That's how I took it all along. Remember the Titans? It was a little shout out. Like, I don't know why people thought he's like dancing on the Titans' grave. Like, come on. That was good, man. That was good, D-Hop.
That does it for us. Chase and Big Joe up next. You're listening to 102.5, 106.3 The Game.